colors creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires, heart of fire.
Men, women, heroes, and embers, welcome to Burning Questions, the show where true heroism is spreading knowledge by answering questions. On today's episode, we have the artistic rosy hero from another universe, Kai Umihara. Kai, would you kindly introduce yourself and give us a bit of your history?
Yeah, sure. I am Kai Umihara. I am a superhero in training. Basically, yeah, I'm from an alternate universe, and I made a mistake, which led me to be here. I'm trying my best. I'm trying to help as many people as I can, and yeah, the reason why I'm a superhero and why I have all these mystical, magical flame and powers, because yeah, my world has a very particular mutagen in our genetics, and basically what happens is what happened was during the Industrial Revolution, pretty similar to here, basically. The advent of electricity and power basically activated this genetic code, which allowed us to mutate and have superpowers. Yay!
Okay, I
So
see.
like 90% of 90% of the world basically has superpowers where I'm from.
Okay, I see. Well, I suppose that makes some sense considering how there has been, like, from where I'm from, a lot of people develop their powers through genetics and through just the spread of knowledge, but yours was more based on an instance during perhaps a chemical or a bomb, or this is something that's unknown.
It's like a byproduct. It's like what we assume basically is like the basically radio waves and electricity. There's a whole bunch of theories, but one of them is basically the advent of electricity, and electricity being just so abundant around everywhere. It's sort of like the energy of that existing allowed us to basically supercharge ourselves. That's what the main theory is, at least. You had to learn it in history class. It was a bit interesting, but yeah, that's basically what we assume. But I think it's the most likely answer.
Okay, I suppose that makes sense considering, uh, considering that there are dimensions where people would develop certain anomalies, which is actually kind of interesting considering how similar some dimensional histories have. Like
Yeah, like basically Oh, no, continue.
no, I was just gonna say that I've interviewed some people where their worlds have developed similarly to Terra in some instances, not completely 100%, of course, which is why, let's say, an entire world can have the exact same history as Earth, but with dinosaurs or with like dragons existing. Just like factor
Yeah.
those in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, for anybody, like anybody who's curious, like I'm assuming that Terra means like what we
Earth.
call
Earth. It's
yeah.
basically the Earth where most of the VTubers or other creatures I found are currently residing in.
Yeah.
Funny enough,
Yeah,
most of the ones I found, like, you just end on there like coincidentally. So I'm assuming that there's like some kind of driving force in there. Some just ends up there through reasons. Others by pure chance.
Oh yeah. For me, it's like a mix of both. Pure chance that I ended up here, but like the reason why I was here in the first place, just basically I screwed up.
Fair
I screwed
enough.
up. I
Fair enough.
took me a while to get over it, but yeah, a mix of both, basically for me in my case. But
Okay.
I'm just like, I'm just me.
But that makes sense. There are a lot of things that does change, like from universe to universe. Actually, I want to ask, considering that this happened, your the abilities of your people, like in your prime universe, in your home universe, manifested around the Industrial Revolution, or did it happen like post the Industrial Revolution?
It happened during the industrial.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So how did that shape
And like
world history?
the
Such as like, did did the world wars happen the same way they did in your universe as it did in Earth in Terra?
sort of, we have our own versions of like the world wars, but they didn't happen during the same period. It just in that time, it was the mutations developed very slowly, and if I know that like here like here was a very tough period, same as like where I'm from. It's actually a pretty hushed topic, but we do learn it at school.
Okay.
Basically, there was a power struggle between the two major world powers, in which these mutations rapidly developing, and you started to see a lot more bioweapons being used, and bioweapons being what we now know as just people, because people
Yeah.
would develop these mutations, and some of them would be more powerful than others. It basically meant that we had a single large-scale war and many proxy wars happening along the way. Eventually, we all started. The world started to develop regulations and safety regulations, and we had to sort of develop a lot of technology on the fly to help alleviate the situation, because there were like people who just irradiate things just from like touching
Existing.
them, stuff
Oh,
like
okay.
that. Yeah, just existing. And instead of obviously just like isolating them, they develop things like just these like nano suits that just wrap around their entire body and keep them, allowing them to go out in public, after like obviously copious amounts of years of just testing in isolated areas. But yeah.
I suppose that makes sense considering that definitely at some point one of the mutations would be intelligence, of course. That would probably like
Mhm.
um help boost the speed at which technology would be created.
Yeah, we definitely have people whose mental processes are a lot faster. Their synapses just the only thing. Like I know there's a few of my friends actually have like abilities that just sends signals through them, like their brain a lot faster. It's like there's a lot of small scale and large scale abilities, some more large scale than others, and we all have jobs and titles that we can all that are basically tailor made for us.
Okay, I suppose. So, without any further ado, let's start with the burning questions. So,
Mhm.
first off, what are some glaring differences between your home universe and this one? I mean, besides the powers, of course.
There's actually a few. Like a lot of the cities that exist here don't exist where we are. Like there's three major nations. Like what you call like Asia Oceania. That area is an entire nation. It's just one country.
Uh,
Because during like the wars in question that we had earlier, it was like territories were taken over. It just meant that we had one singular territory. So what you know is Europe is just and Eurasia and all that. That's just one singular nation. Just like the Americas, like North America, South America, they had to sort of like band together. There are territories in what you know is Europe that are still owned or like in alliance with like the Americas, but it is just that is just the state of the world. And then the like Africa is like is a lot more technologically advanced and is an independent nation.
that's four then.
No. So like the territories beside it's actually it's three nations. One being the Americas, and there's the Eurasia area. So like all of like Europe and Asia, except the few little like situations in which there's still people working like alongside. We just basically call it like allies.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's Africa being its own
Oh,
independent
so
nation.
okay, so wait, Europe, Asia, and Oceania is one whole thing. Ah,
One whole
okay, okay, okay,
that whole
okay,
area.
okay. I see. Um, actually, sorry. The beginning with us Africa being essentially a superpower with holding all of those territories with like those three major powers. Do they still have like territorial conflicts? Because surely with a lot of land that it covers, there would be more conflicts between them.
There is there have definitely been instances of there being conflict, but the major thing that stops those like conflicts from existing is the fact that Africa is where you get all of the resources to develop all of these your technology that you use to basically further your own country. It's like how the oil crisis was dealt with by just making allies with countries that do have oil. It's the same sort of concept.
Ah, so
A lot
instead
of
of
the
wars, it's
like
trade.
yeah, it's trade. Trade is very important. So because Africa is basically the source of a lot of the trade materials that we need in any of the other places in the world, that's a lot basically where you get it.
Okay, I
And
see.
basically, who wants to bite the hand that feeds them? You know.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not gonna get into like modern day politics on Terra, but yeah, it really, it really has
Yeah.
changed a lot of things when certain events happen that cause conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Africa is one of those nations that's just a lot more ahead of any technological advances they had to make. So a lot of researchers from other countries would move to Africa to research, study through in what they assume is safe environment because there's so many empty, barren places to just start up research camps to do these sorts of things. Originally, it was a really bloody affair, like having people who were deemed deemed as deviants. Like, for example, the person in question where we were talking about, the person who basically irradiated everything, they're taken there, and there's like a whole section that's still considered a dead zone.
Okay, that
But
I see.
eventually, eventually it just grew to this massive empire of just technological advancements because just so many people use that area.
Actually makes a lot. That's actually somewhat similar to the history of Incendium, the city where I live in, but I'll get into that like much later.
Mhm.
But I was actually a bit curious. What are some, let's say, problems that has occurred within your world that you think should be addressed, like social issues, if there are, of course,
Oh.
because considering that entire considering empires have been created, surely there is like some reason why they banded together, and nothing bands people together more than hating something.
Exactly. Oh God. Okay, so here's the thing. You know how you have various different economical structures like capitalism, communism, all that stuff.
Sure.
We have our major conflict isn't like trade because everybody's using a uniform trade method. However, question is, what are your societal expectations for developing and becoming productive in society? You have and like here's the thing. There's a lot of you would call terrorism here. Back there, it's like villainy.
Yeah.
I- it's the reason why it even exists is because innately having these abilities makes us
Feel
unequal.
superior. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some people use it as a way to get back at people. Some people use it as a way to sort of try to revolutionize the system. And then there's also people who just do it because they can.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
it's really like that's why superheroism is basically one of the major like occupations. We have sponsors. We have all these people just working. And it's almost like how you treat sports here. The more successful you are as a hero, like the more renowned you are, the more money you make, and it becomes a really difficult topic when you're discussing: are you a hero because you want to save people, or are you a hero because you want to make money? And both of them are valid questions. So yeah, when you think about like how the world works and how it's basically just an economic bombshell, it means that there's a lot of, and I mean a lot of just strife going on. So it's important for people to have people who protect. And yeah, in my opinion, like if you're going out to being a hero for money, you should, because there are some really insanely powerful people you're constantly risking your life uh, just trying to deal with. But at the same time, my approach isn't really too monetary. It's just I want to help people.
Okay, I see. I suppose that I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum where I some people would call me
Yeah.
a hero, but I only do it because I get paid, so you know.
You're a hero for hire.
Exactly. Hero for hire. What's the term called? Soldier of Fortune. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there I have met some. I suppose the term would be mercenaries who do get paid, who do only good things, and they do it at a lower price. So those guys are probably like more heroic than I am. But of course, they go through some economic issues. But then it's this whole back and forth of people are helping them though, so helping them, relieve this. Are you shitting me? Okay.
Something happening.
Okay. Okay, never mind. It's fine. Okay, I thought the thing like broke in. Anyway, yeah, it's like this. It's like the point of view of, are you gonna do something for money or do something because it's a good thing? That's like the dilemma that a lot of video games go through. But it's not like to the same extent because some of them are just poorly made.
Yeah. A good like representation of that. It's probably like The Witcher 3.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it.
Basically, every time I have the opportunity, I'm just like I just tell them to not even pay me. The fact that you
Yeah,
have three options: have them pay you, make them not pay you, or make them pay you even more.
yeah. At some point, it's like open world video games. It's like at some point, you just have too much money.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I'm playing The Witcher, a lot of the time, like try to play The Witcher like I play like a lot of games. I just sort of limit myself in a way that makes the game a little bit more challenging, without arbitrarily changing numbers. So I played The Witcher 3 on like hard mode, and then I made it so that I didn't use any potions.
Ah, okay.
I didn't use any of like basically any of the things that I felt was a little bit too overpowered, if you know what I mean.
Like Quinn.
Yeah. Well, I had to for one mission that I had to do, but other than that, I just didn't use it if I didn't have to.
I I actually did never use potions for like the longest time because I thought they were limited. Why am I only carrying
Yeah,
one?
maybe.
Oh, okay, that's how it reveals. Okay.
Yeah, you have like 3 in your inventory at all times.
I was like, what the fuck? I only
It's
thought I had one.
Especially since I played like multiple times and kept losing my save data. Thank you, Sonny.
Oh, that sucks. But yeah, going back, there are just some dilemmas that people like us. Well, last week I interviewed a thief, and his whole thing was, if it's not protected, it deserves to be stolen. And I kind of get that, but he only steals from like bad people, so that's like this the whole other thing from him.
He's like Robin Hood without the extra steps.
Yeah,
That's what his like his mentality is.
yeah, pretty much. Except he gives the money to himself. So
So he steals from so here's the thing. He steals from bad people, right?
yeah,
And his mentality is also, if it's not protected, then it's fair game.
essentially, yeah.
It's an interesting dilemma. I mean, for me, I have regulations I have to follow, and obviously I wouldn't do that. But I can see how that could be a personal good. You know, like a personal morality good.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely some like rules that I bend a little bit because I just feel like there's moments where for example, there's a regulations for safety, and there's always occupational safety.
Oh, definitely.
It's a very dangerous. So,
Bro, the OSHA of that
his-
universe.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
So like, so in cases of when there's too much of a risk to individual officers, like what you'd call officers, basically us heroes. Whenever there's too much of a risk, we are told to pull out, like basically regroup. But if I ever see a person that's in need, and me leaving would put them at detriment, I'd ignore, then deal with the ramifications later, which usually just means I get reprimanded by anybody in power at that, whoever is around, basically.
Okay.
Because you can't really I mean, you can't really just reprimand somebody who saved a civilian's life and came back alive. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's not like you'd reprimand a dead guy as well.
Good point.
I
though.
think, I do what I feel is right in the moment. Yeah, if you think doing the right thing, then just expect to be pursued by people who disagree.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if the law is different.
I suppose that's also the reason why some people decide to turn to vigilantism, because they don't want to be like regulated, but they also still want to help people.
Yeah. We have vigilante, and then it's
But
just
again, they don't
a
get
lot
paid.
more- Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more like official to you. Once you basically graduated the schools, you immediately get put into a service, like a year, under the tutelage of somebody. And once that happens, you're basically given free housing and free food, and on top of that, you get paid like a fair wage. Nothing like spectacular, but once you start building a name for yourself and you build up your portfolio and you start going out there and you sponsors and stuff, that's basically how you make a living.
Yeah, so I suppose that's the reason why it's like very popular.
Yeah, a lot of agencies will give you like a lot of benefits, like medical. Obviously medical has to be a given. If they don't offer you medical, you're kind of screwed. Yeah, you get offered like medical, you get offered like housing, you get offered tuition for if you have kids, for example. They'll give tuition for your kids.
Okay, so that's what you
It's
pay.
beneficial for them in the long term. If any of your traits get passed on and you're already a professional hero that has an ability that's useful and marketable, they might as well just give them free tuition so that eventually they grow up and become
Like
those
you.
that they can market once you're retired. It's a constant product cycle, but money makes the world go around, I guess.
So I'm assuming there's for example, in America, there's a lot of like military families where like the grandpa used to be in World War II, the dad used to be in the Vietnam War, then like the son like is in the Afghanistan War, and so on and so on. So you probably also have like some hero families where the grandpa, dad, son, and probably his son also are all like heroes, huh?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, a lot of those cases that actually crop up. Very rare when like somebody doesn't have the aspiration to become a hero. It is a very tight industry, though.
What would you
to
say
be
are like
fair,
some
I don't
cons
really-
to being a hero? Like common cons.
Other than the fact that I've probably broken every single bone in my body at least 3 times.
Nice.
Like very difficult. As soon as you start in your process into those schools, basically 24 hours constant surveillance, right? And you're not really given a second to breathe because those schools are at risk of terrorist attacks. They're I mean, if you think of like schools that are basically teaching kids to stop
Crime.
for villains, wouldn't the villains want to take them out before they've reached maturity and able to actually do something about it? So you're constantly on edge, as well as the fact that while you're doing it, you just never get given a break. You have to learn a lot about society, you have to learn a lot about technology, you have to learn a lot about health, and you have to train constantly. You have to be at peak physique at all times. And peak physique doesn't mean oh, I'm athletic. It means I can lift a burning truck above my head if I have that ability, of course, if I need to save people.
Okay.
A lot of the time I see there's this one girl who was in my class and she threw up in the middle of our lesson just because she was just training so hard. Is when she was younger, like the person that she looked up to, the hero she looked up to, saved her and her entire family by carrying them all at once out of a burning building. So she's training to be like that, and a lot of the time you have to self-motivate yourself to do that because nobody else is doing it for you. Instructors are just there to oversee everything, make sure that things are going according to plan and according to schedule. A lot of that's, if you're a practical instructor, you're basically just giving them advice on how to exercise better. So,
Huh.
yeah, you have to sort
Okay.
of self-motivate yourself to keep progressing, and it is very difficult, as well as the fact that it's expensive. If you don't have a family of heroes, you're basically just paying a massive fee for these lessons because they're in really controlled environments, a lot of security, like insane preparations. You're basically stuck at, you have to pay for living expenses because you're living on campus. You're never going to be allowed to go home because now your name is public. Those records are dangerous. So it'll be a danger to your family to leave that and then somebody follows you home. You're limited in the amount of access you have to contacting people that you know, because they don't allow outgoing calls to be traced. So you're not even allowed to talk about how the lessons are being like conducted or the things that you're learning. Some of the things you're learning are just, like, it would horrify regular people. But yeah, it's just how the world goes. It's not easy for
Definitely.
sure.
Yeah, that's really just a
The thing,
lot to go through as a young adult, I suppose. It's like when you're gonna take this. It's like the equivalent of college, I'm
yeah.
assuming.
Sometimes not even that. I had people in my class that were like 14.
Eesh.
Just like the
That's
earlier the better because you just have a lot of conditioning that you have to do. I was a late bloomer. Even then it was just like insane log. Already started my first year of a university course before I even started being
okay, that
to be a hero.
that is brutal.
Because my
That kind
power,
of reminds me of like the Spartan thing. The lessons that Spartans used to go through.
Mhm.
Essentially, like starting from like a young kid, because the young kids are like better at like conditioning for the soldier mind. That's
Mhm.
that's a lot of work, I suppose. I suppose that also like create like a couple villains who just couldn't take the way that the system works.
and the thing is, like, we never really know. They tend to just hide their identities very, very well because
True.
one of the things that we have to do is hide our, like, for some heroes, like they choose to learn lessons that help them hide their identity. So very effectively at
And
that.
there is like practical reasons why they do it, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Like some people choose to be more public and they can like choose a different external course. But yeah, that is one of the things we learn. And if somebody just decides to take those lessons and do something bad about it, bad with them, then you're kind of screwed, really. Finding them is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. On the bright side, I suppose, the heroes of your world must be like tough as nails, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which is really like it's insane. The kinds of things that I remember when I first went to the academy, way they showed off some of our instructors. I like what you'd have as a PE teacher. A PE teacher came out of like a literal airship hangar, carrying a fighter jet for his shoulders.
Bruh.
Yeah, I know, right? He was
Bruh.
like, "Your first lesson, catch this."
Okay.
uh, as a group, we had to catch it.
Huh. Well, one of you should have like had a like somebody who with a strength ability though. I hope.
No, but we did have a bit of a advantage. For me, obviously, I have various different abilities just because energy transfer. So it helped me a little bit. There was somebody whose ironic ability was make things float.
Ah, okay.
Although fighter jet was weight. It did alleviate some of the work.
Okay, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, we had to hold it for the remainder of the 1 hour lesson.
Bruh.
Yeah, they're harsh on the first day. It's to weed out the people that do want to be here. And
How many quit during that day though? Like, out of how many you reckon?
like we started out with at least 48 initiates.
Uh-huh.
At the end of it was a class of 14.
Yeesh. Yeesh. Wait, the PE class or the entire graduation?
Well, we haven't graduated, but yeah, the entire year group.
Oh lord. Okay.
But yeah, this is just one of the institutes. There's multiple like around the country and a lot around the world.
Fair
For
enough.
us, it was just started out with 48, we beated it down to 14, and where we're at now. It's also because we get split into groups, and it's better to have an even number.
Okay, yeah, that's true. But I suppose if it's gonna be odd, that one kid is gonna just be like, has to be like tough as balls.
Yeah, just imagine like one day, well, like 1 year, only one initiate is selected. Hatch this.
He just cast it like by himself. Jeez. Okay. Okay. Well, I suppose that's enough for now. Of course. Let's move on to the next question. This is a question I've been wondering because I know you can like you can control heat and of course do some kind of pyrokinesis at times. So I have to ask, have you ever thought of cooking a hot dog by just holding it in the palm of your hand and then giving it to someone?
Think I didn't already? I've done it for like a lot of people, actually.
So
I remember one time we snuck out and really, God, I'm not on that world anymore. We get absolutely destroyed. But we snuck out one night and went into the middle of like the lake. It was just probably like a kilometer away from it. And we were jumping into the lake and all that, and then they pulled out a bunch of snacks like s'mores and stuff. So I made a fire, and then some people brought up like popcorn and hot dogs and all that, and I just I just went out and we just had a party.
Nice.
But yeah, like a lot of people like misinterpret what my ability is. Like it's energy tron. So the most flashy. The reason why I use a lot of fire is because it's easily marketable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, my ability is energy transfer. So I tend to just charge people's phones.
Well,
Energy
I guess
production,
I
creation,
guess
and
that
transfer.
solves the next question then, which is, do you charge people's phones?
I charge people's phones. I charge people's laptops. There's one point when the power went down, and I just sat down in the generator room for like an hour until it all came back online.
Nice.
Yeah, we just a bunch of my friends came down. We played some mobile games. I just sat there, like charging the entirety of the facility.
You should have gone paid for that, or it's like taken out of your, let's say, tuition fee.
Oh no, it wasn't like well, I did sort of get paid. I mean, I did get I just got like a few free days off.
Okay, that's
going
good.
out into the city, exploring. Because I wasn't from the city. I actually lived in like a pretty rural, like suburban area. Yeah, I got to be a tourist for like a few days.
Okay,
They gave me some stuff they gave me some money to see what I like if I could pick up some stuff. I got a bunch of video games and stuff.
Hell yeah. Next off, I want to ask, since I don't think you mentioned it in your file, which is, could you tell me more about your parents, and did they have like powers, I suppose?
Yeah, I can tell you. Well, it's not much of a secret, but was orphaned when I was young, and well, I was adopted by this family. My name was actually given to them. I didn't have a name. Um, And yeah, because they're not technically my biological parents, they don't have the same abilities as me.
Ah,
Like
okay.
yeah. So I didn't get any hereditary powers from them. I'm not sure who my biological parents are. We couldn't find the record of them.
Ah, okay. So
But
it's
what
really,
I
really
do,
when you were really, really young.
yeah, yeah,
Ah,
yeah, I was really young. Um, so me, like, here's the thing. Like, I should be able to remember at least a little bit about where I'm from, but I did have a massive wound in my head when the orphanage found me. So
ah.
they assumed that I just had amnesia, and so yeah, I was like I assume I was like around probably 2, 3 years old
Hmm.
at the time. So I should have like at least some recollection of some events or anything. I don't even remember my time at the orphanage.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, they adopted me when I was 7. Apparently, I was basically mute and quiet until I at least turned like 9. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like if you want to know what their abilities are, like my mom, she's basically got the ability to transfer like she's basically able to like transfer like signals from one to another. So a lot of the time whenever like she's trying to listen to the radio in the morning and she's going under a bridge, she can control the signal so that she can at least fine tune it to hear it. Then
Okay.
my father, who basically is just he here's the thing.
Hmm?
When I was younger, he used to say his powers were a million different things.
Or
Just
what?
trying to like, just trying to mess with me, you know?
Oh, okay. Fair
And
enough.
so, even though I theoretically know what his ability,
Hmm?
don't really. I know that like communicate with animals and stuff, but
Sorry, you're
also
cutting out a
used
bit.
to like do those. Sorry. I know that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything good?
That's everything's good.
All right. I know that he can like communicate with animals and stuff. Uh, that's the thing. There's probably more to it because I remember when I was younger, he used to do these like really stupid magic tricks. He'd like he'd say, "Oh yeah, this is what's gonna happen," and it happened. Like with like squirrels and
Yeah,
they would just do a whole bunch of, and I'd be like, "Wait, is that you just knowing what they're saying to each other, or is that you actually
controlling them.
making them do that?"
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't really know, but he's also like he's a dad, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like he's gonna mess with you a little. Yeah, that's what my assumption is. I
Okay,
think he
fair
just
enough.
communicate. Yeah, I think he can just communicate with any species.
Did your
He's a
adoptive parents
translator by
have?
trade.
These are your adoptive parents or your?
I don't know who my
Okay, okay.
biological parent.
Um, did you have any adoptive siblings?
Oh no. Yeah, they couldn't really afford another.
Ah, fair
The
enough.
issue was, here's the thing: like the mutation makes it very difficult for some people to have kids, and so
Hmm.
they adopted me instead. And yeah, by not having a much, they gave me a lot. But yeah, sorry if you can hear dog barking.
Don't
That's my
worry,
dog.
it's fine.
He's a good boy.
Okay, so we have your dad, your mom. Considering that your world has a lot of like powers that a lot of powers that aren't really that effective, that also means that there's a lot of people, a lot of essentially civilians who can't take up being a hero. How often? I'm sorry, what would you reckon is the ratio of how popular how popular being a hero is?
Say it's like pretty much as popular as being like an internet influencer, you know? Like you're the person with with like a big following, you're getting sponsorships, like in the news, you're all like it's a big deal.
Okay.
And you're not a like when you're a kid, like either A wanting to be a hero or B wanting to be a person who basically is like in channels dedicated to heroes and stuff on like you're like the equivalent here would be YouTube.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a pop culture thing, right? Like whatever was popular at the time. Basically, we still have like the other stuff, like being an astronaut, being a actor, being all these different things. It's like it's just one of the other options.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I sup.
Obviously, we still have like options of law and stuff. That's another option.
Oh yeah.
Also, if you want to get into heroism, there's actually a lot of jobs that allow you to work with heroes. So, like obviously, there's the science departments that develop technologies and all that stuff. There's also people who design costumes, and there's people who work with like promoting and all that stuff. There's a whole process about it. You shake hands with so many people when you're doing this thing. It's crazy.
I feel really bad for the introvert superheroes.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I am. They have public speaking classes.
I used to
It's,
load those.
it's rough. It's rough, dude.
It sounds like it's rough for those guys. Well, anyway, let's move on to the next question, which is, since you told me that you were a late bloomer, initially, how did your parents and peers react to you just suddenly getting powers at such a late age?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. Like to tell the story of how I got my power. It was like the apartment building we were living, a gas leak, and there was like a gas explosion because we already had the fire department there. Because like somebody, I don't know who it was, probably like our neighbor Ned. He was basically like somebody just stated that there was like he noticed a gas leak or a gas fissure, and the fire department came in and a gas explosion happened, but
Sure.
it was contained within a forest field. However, force field wasn't enough and everything started to catch fire. While we were escaping through the fire escape, I remember hearing like a girl just crying in the corner and like the back of like one of the apartments, and I don't know what came over me, but it was like powerless and all that, and I just ran in. Like I remember my mom screaming and just telling me to get back here, but ran in and just I got her out. And yeah, she's doing great. We used to keep in contact before I'm here now.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's doing great. She's actually studying to be a dentist.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I remember when I came out, like, well, I don't really remember a lot, but what my mom said was just that the fire just dispersed around us as we walked through.
Okay.
And then,
And that's how you
yeah,
discovered your powers.
so- exactly. And then when I went to school, like, the next week after, like, getting let out of the hospital, I remember there was a few people. There was a few of my friends. Like we were just hanging around, and like when you're like a kid and you're like cheeky and you're just like hey.
Sure.
Let's wait until they just pick on me for not having powers again.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that moment. I was hella cheeky. We sat in
Eh,
like we sat at the lunch table, right? And
Uh-huh.
I still didn't know what my powers were. So just for context, I knew I had them.
hmm.
Didn't know what they were. We sat at the lunch table. Like they were passing around a whole bunch of the like a whole bunch of the like these trading cards that had like the superheroes on. And I remember I was like showing them like, great, yeah, awesome. So they were passing around trading cards. I was showing this like my favorite hero, and I was showing them all my card and all that stuff.
Sure.
And they started picking on me, just basically saying, "Oh yeah, you like." Bad, you'll never be like them. Just cheeky little
Yeah.
cheeky little 7th grade shenanigans,
Mhm.
And I was just like, are you sure about that? And we at first they were like, come on, dude. Come on. I was just like, yeah, I might have a little bit of a trick up my. But they didn't believe me, of course. It was lunch. I couldn't do much. Then
Yeah.
afterwards, when we were kicking a ball outside and after school, and I remember they were just like they were still picking on me. So did was went to like a little shop. We bought a lighter,
Mhm.
and I put my hand over the lighter, like as the light was going on, and the fire just wrapped around my hand. I
Mhm.
didn't know how I was doing it. I didn't know why I was doing it. I think my body was just making a defense mechanism because it started to get hot. It
Yeah.
just wrapped around my hand. When I lifted it off of the flame, my hand was just on fire. And
Nice.
just remember just everybody's face just going, wow.
Yo. This dude on fire, yo.
And they were like, how is this man? Like, like, it was really funny because you'd expect it to be like, yo, he's on fire and all that.
Yeah.
They had questions. They were like, dude, how's your shirt not burning?
That is true though. I suppose it's like your power is like doing something with that. I'm assuming.
It was like, it's almost like I had like my body was innately just burning. It was
Okay.
weird. Eventually, after like a bunch of trips, we call it power therapist. Really strange title for a job.
That
I
sounds
started
awesome,
working
by the way. The power
Yeah,
therapist.
basically, power therapist. The
Don't
superpower.
worry, honey. I'll just take our son to the power therapist.
Yeah, to the power therapist. It was like a physical therapist. What they basically do is help find triggers to powers and allow you to use them. Then also after that, they'll coach you into helping you control them. And so there was a struggle. It lasted for a very long time. Eventually, when I graduated, I still couldn't really get a grasp on anything. And I took a year of film at a university, and eventually, like, while I was doing that course, it just sort of clicked, right? Like something felt off. I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing.
Okay.
Like I still had that like dream in the back of my head that I wanted to be a hero. So
Yeah.
while my parents weren't looking, I signed a form, and they did an analysis. We had like they took me into this training room, and basically evaluated my performance. And through that, it was just an arduous, strenuous task of just doing various different things, like testing out your speed, and you had to reach a specific score in at least one of those like, performance evaluations.
Okay.
Then they put you in a crisis scenario, and see how you deal with it. And at that moment, it just sort of like clicked. Everything just went into place, and I was able to use my ability. Wasn't very good at it. It felt like when I was in those scenarios, something just works, and I just kept doing it, and eventually I just revealed to my parents that yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
And they were supportive. I was lucky enough to get government funding. So I won't be too in debt.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I also got like I got support from
From your sorry.
my role. I got support from a role model who
Ah.
she basically saw something in me that I didn't at the time, and she's kind of helping me out as well. She also happens to be one of my professors, which is awesome.
Okay. I see. Well,
Oh
that's.
yeah.
I was wondering though. Is your situation like unique in a sense that your powers manifested due to like a traumatic situation?
Yeah, well, everybody has their own manifestation like story. Like
Okay, so it's not exactly
Canadian.
rare.
It's not exactly like the most rare thing. Like if your ability is a little bit more situational like mine was at the time before I realized how inclusive it was. And it's not unlikely that a stressful event could reduce your ability to use it.
Okay, fair enough. Because I was thinking like hypothetically, let's say that there is a how should I say? Let's say that there's this hero, right? He has a kid, but then his kid doesn't seem to like manifest a power that he has. Let's say super strength. His plan would be to put his kid through traumatic situations in the hopes that that would trigger the powers. That is crazy, but that is a potential thing that could happen.
I mean, like that's like our version of rednecks right there. Back when I was young, back when I was a youngin', we used to shoot deer ourselves. Now we buy it from the supermarket. That kind of stuff. Like, now as a kid, I jumped off a building, and that meant I could fly. Let's push you off a building, son. Let's see how you do. I know your mom's power ain't nothing like that, but let's just assume that maybe your power's flat, just like mine.
Yeah. I actually do recall like hearing some stories about people like trying to teach their kids how to swim, and their one thing is, let's get on a boat. I throw you off the boat, and it's either you drown or you swim. Good luck. And they just like, it's like a motorboat also, not like a rowboat.
Go swim, kid.
Throws the kid off. Okay, sink or swim, sink or swim.
Swim, kid.
Oh, that's a lot of traumatized children thinking about it.
Nah, that's why we have power therapists. That's actually illegal. Induced trauma.
Induce trauma to create powers.
Yeah. The reason we have power therapists in general is just for that exact reason. It's very situational.
It's a good thing you were born when power therapists exist, because thinking about it, they never always existed.
I would feel like, just imagine, like they test out and try to figure out how do we induce powers. Drop a nuclear bomb on somebody. Oh, that's how we do it, right? Everybody, let's drop a nuke.
I'm just imagining like during the times of like black and white TV, they're like, hey, look at this new research. It says that this person like manifested their powers through like a car crash. Hey son, catch this! Like just throws like a rock like at the just that.
Oh my god, yeah, like very regulated. We have a lot of regulation against inducing any sort of violence or trauma on people. But yeah, it can get ridiculous. Like, some of the stories, like, here's the thing. Some stories are pretty like straightforward. Oh, yeah. I just started when I was young, or maybe like their ability is just the fact that they have like extra hair on their body or something like that. It just exists. It's not like mine where it's all mental control and sort of calculating the effects and natures of things.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah, some powers are natural, some powers have to be awakened, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Okay, I'm starting to think like, because our powers can also be awakened like pretty much at any age, right?
Yes.
So I'm just like thinking about this like one salary man just like walking down the wrong alleyway, then another guy like pulls out a gun and says, "Give me all your money," and that's exactly like when his powers like manifested.
that would make such a good story.
That would make an awesome story.
I could just imagine like going home that night, you have like a wife who you've been married to for like the past 20 years, and you're like,
I got the powers now.
Baby, I'm gonna be your hero tonight.
That would be a good pickup line, honestly, though. Thinking about it also, there has to be like just some like hero exclusive parties, right? Sorry?
Oh, you mean like celebrity parties?
Yeah, essentially that, yeah.
Sure.
But just like superheroes.
Yeah, we have our own equivalent to like the Met Gala and stuff.
Ah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Hell yeah.
We also have a bunch of those like get-togethers. That's great.
Yeah.
I love seeing some of the pompous people who come in with like pretty bodyguards, but they know that they're way more powerful than those bodyguards.
Those bodyguards are the mini bosses.
Bodyguards are the people being bodyguarded.
It kind of reminds
Yeah,
me of that
they're the
one
minions.
photo. Yeah, it reminds me of that one photo of Terra's World Jason Momoa, like with his bodyguards, and his bodyguards are like puny
Oh, yeah.
compared to him.
Yeah, oh my god. It's like that also that photo of like Dwayne the Rock Johnson with the
Yeah.
bodyguards when they went to Coachella. Oh my
Oh.
god, yeah.
Those guys do not
Bodyguards,
look like they need
2 feet
bodyguards.
shorter. Yeah, the bodyguard's like 2 feet shorter.
Okay, my favorite one was when Arnold Schwarzenegger with his bodyguards. That was
Oh
hilarious.
my god, yeah.
People
Yeah.
have seen his movies. They know he's a badass. They're not gonna try anything.
Not gonna mess with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well,
Arnold
anyway.
Schwarzenegger is just- yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the next question. Seeing as how you have a hero who you looked up to, can you tell me more about this person? This person's name is Blue Eagle, if I recall, right?
Her, she's so. Here's the thing, Eagle. When I was a kid, like, you always had to choose a hero that you would look up to, like,
Sure.
right? And it was just the normal thing. It's like, who's your favorite celebrity? Blah blah blah. Who's your favorite? Like, it was you just had to have an opinion.
Yeah.
I, as a kid, like, I just never really. I wasn't very good at communicating and didn't really attach myself to a lot of things. It was just very difficult for me. But I just remember when I was like younger, just watching an interview with her, and she was just on the news. And I don't know, she just seemed so genuine because he was the only hero that was on there without like a bunch of sponsorship tags on them or like a bunch of like. She just did because she wanted to be one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just clicked with me, and so I started following what she was doing and all that stuff. And it turned out she was just a great person. And when I started like showing my powers, I just remember like there was this moment where just it's almost like starstruck gold or something, where we I met her, got to meet her, and it was just one of those cases where you're just like, and then she was like, oh, what's your name? Like, and all that stuff. Like, it's that moment where you don't know whether or not to savor the moment or ask for an autograph, right?
Yeah.
I just chose to savor the moment, and we just spoke, we just talked, and she was just off. It was like her day off. She was just doing whatever, sitting outside the institute. Little did I know she was like transferring from one school to that one. I just so happened to be going to. And so we met up, and she asked me a whole bunch of stuff, and then she almost did told me like one of the greatest lessons, really. Like, she was like probably downing like 4 beers at the time. She didn't care. She was just like, for me, it was like the most like beautiful thing in terms of like how it made me comprehend everything. She just taught me to take a leap of faith. She definitely broke quite a few rules. Let's just say, like, going through places where we weren't supposed to. She showed me the school ahead of time, showed me all these different things, and then she made me just think outside the box, not just focus so heavily on what people think about me or like what I can do, but what I should do, you know?
Okay.
So yeah, right when it clicked, she just said, "You know what, kid? Here you go. You know what? I'm gonna endorse you." And she did, and so happened on that day that I walked out thinking I screwed up. Not only did I not screw up, apparently, I also got endorsed by my favorite hero, and she happens to be my team leader. For that jazz.
Okay, that's good. Then.
Yeah, her real name is Juniper, and she's awesome.
Ah, okay. So, your mentor, the Blue Eagle. What were her powers though?
Powers are literally just super speed and flight.
Hmm. Okay, so it was
That's
just like
the thing. That's the thing, though. That's what she markets herself on. But she doesn't actually fly or have super speed. She just has the ability to teleport things. She uses it, but it's more marketable to have something flashy. She just
hmm,
moves herself through these teleportations and portals that she creates, give the illusion that she's flying. I can tell you guys that because not there. Nobody will care if I say it to people who aren't even there.
that's fair. That's really fair.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the reason I'm here. She sent me here.
okay. So that's so interesting that you can use like some form of manipulation. Well, not really manipulation. Like you just change the way that your powers are perceived to like give the illusion of like what your powers are.
For me, it's like my ability is energy transfer, manipulation, and creation.
But fire
That's
is a
in
lot
times
more
five.
flashy.
Exactly. It's a lot more marketable. And that's what we have to do when we build a portfolio, you know?
That makes sense. I I do fire stuff.
I do fire stuff. What? Aren't you a little bit more interesting? Like energy manipulation, transfer, and, and creation?
It's boring. People don't want that.
Yeah, fire, lightning. That's me.
Yeah, okay,
I
that,
do
that
the fire and the lightning. Do boom boom and kaka.
fireball and lightning. Very, very frightening.
Galileo.
Okay, well, actually, okay. This is slightly off topic, but I have to like just say this. If a hero becomes a rock star, that would make their concerts effects like one a lot more dangerous, but two also a lot cooler.
Well, hell yeah. You think we don't have internships here? Dude, when we're doing like these courses, on our weekends, we're working as like pyrotechnicians and stuff.
Hell yeah.
It's a blast. Like being it's also a great way to like promote yourself. A lot of the time when we're having these big events, like cheaper to just have a person who can do these sorts of things. So for me, it's particularly technics. So they teach me a choreography. I shoot out a bunch of fireballs out into the air, make them blow up in like controlled manners, of course.
Yeah.
And I get paid for it whilst also getting a little bit of exposure and all that stuff.
Hell yeah,
It's great.
Like a little money on the side and stuff like that.
Yeah, we all do it.
Cool. Next stuff, I want to ask you, when your powers manifested when you saved that kid during the apartment fire, do you know what caused the fire? Supposedly, was it like arson, or maybe somebody was playing with their abilities, or could it be like another pyromancer, for example?
It wasn't anything big like that. It was just like a gas leak. Honestly, we were just they controlled they controlled a lot of the initial destruction, but it was just like it was horrible because it was one of those moments when I realized that it's not just the powers that can be dangerous. It's just day-to-day life is also there's always risks that we take. And because we just didn't have the money for a lot of those modern appliances, we were stuck in like using those and stuff and adding like a gas explosion.
Very fair. I mean, life generally is dangerous. We have like what 700-pound hunks of metal just traveling like 7 feet away, like a couple meters away from you, and if you get hit by it, you will die.
Yeah, when you're walking in the middle of the street, like you get cars that are driving at like 100 kilometers per hour. I don't know what that is in miles per hour, but
yeah.
in the middle of like a highway.
People
Yes.
underestimate like how dangerous life is. Period.
Yeah, life is very dangerous, but it's also very precious.
Of course. Yeah.
So yeah. I wish there was like more like I could say that was just a little bit more impressive, but nah, it was just a gas leak, honestly.
I
Luckily,
suppose
there was no casualties.
I suppose like these things just tend to happen, huh? Like on
Yeah.
daily occurrence, because let's be honest, with like a
Mhm.
dense population, there tends to be a lot of accidents like in a controlled area, in like a single area.
Mhm. That is true.
Well, of course, not every one of them is like deadly. It could be like as little as somebody like falling and hitting their head on like the corner of a table. That's like
Oh yeah.
dangerous as hell.
Yeah, yeah. You're telling me. Imagine getting thrown out of a 20-story building at Mach 3 and trying to not break your skull in.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's a lifestyle choice. I think that's a quote. That's a quote.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It's a
As you're
lifestyle.
getting like shoved out of a plane.
Yeah, just like getting thrown like Mach 3 towards the ground. It's a lifestyle
A
choice.
lifestyle choice. Okay, moving on. We discussed earlier that powers does like the flashy powers does like play into someone's popularity. But how but does it like have a greater or lesser effect compared to someone's like actual reputation? For example, like super strength isn't as flashy unless it's like being worked on, but like somebody whose abilities like have a fire around them, that's way more flashy. But honestly, super strength is of course more effective in like during disasters. So who do you think would be like the more popular candidate in this kind of case?
No, not really. Not really like not really like a. It's more like you have to find your avenue for. Some people do it through performance. Some people do it through spectacle. Just memorable. You know how like you have famous actors who don't place like major bombastic characters or superheroes and stuff, and yet they're still memorable. I think of like Morgan Freeman, just completely memorable, even though he plays more subdued characters. Just he's a great actor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like your performance. Also, another way you get clarity. It's just how do you approach it.
Okay.
But for like me, for example, I'm not the most. I don't know. I'm not very good at convincing people to. I don't know. I'm not. I'm not a public figure. I'm not a very public figure. So it's not like I am. Also, I just came out of the blue as well. So for me, it was like promote this kid that like doesn't have a social media, doesn't do this, doesn't do that, doesn't have a lot of like people who already know of him, and randomly has these superpowers. Oh, fireworks! You're now doing fireworks. Right. And then it became like, okay, now we have to. Yeah, initially the promotion process, promoting you through your real name, and then eventually using your hero name that you get. You usually give yourself at the end of the course. Of course, if you're like doing like anonymous stuff, then you don't you don't. They don't really promote you, but that's the risk you have to take if you want to be from like anonymous. But even if like when you're anonymous, anyways, you just not you know that you're not doing it for promotional reasons.
Wait, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I suppose that uh let's say that there's a hero whose whole thing is that they're a ninja. People wouldn't know them at first, but that would like really be like a selling point for like let's say kids. Because let's be honest, kids think ninjas are cool as balls.
Yeah, like the thing. You just have to think like, yo, I guess I'm a ninja. Like, oh, obviously, like with heroes is different than like than like the pop culture version of. You usually have to do an interview at the end of like any successful mission, you know.
Fair
Like you
enough.
obviously get publicity. So obviously the mission itself, you're not. If you're playing like if you're going to go in stealth, nobody knows you're there. But
Ah,
once everything is accounted for and the case is solved, everything's gone through its necessary paperwork, people get to know who was the face behind it, or like in this case, who was the mask behind it.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you still get promotion and it's like news outlets want to know. That's the thing, because it gets clicks.
I'm not sure if the paparazzi of your world would be much worse or much better, because on one hand people love heroes, on the other hand
Oh,
they're afraid of
yeah.
them. Imagine like being like pissing off somebody with like lightning powers. Zap, camera
Oh my
gone.
god.
Zap, your phone's gone.
It's more like we don't like heroes just don't do that sort of thing, but I think the
Fair.
thing that like people don't take into account is the fact that yeah, there are some obligations that just criticize everything about you and you kind of have to learn how to deal with it.
That is depressing,
like-
but also true.
Like even if you go like let's say a villain held up a store and you got there in under a minute, you're gonna be like, why weren't you there like 30 seconds faster?
Yeah, sounds about right.
It's just there's always something to complain about because there are definitely heroes who can teleport, can stop time, run like increasingly fast speeds and all that stuff. You're like just if your ability is like just super strength, like what are you gonna do? Hop there faster?
I suppose that that's just a thing that happens like universally at this
Mhm.
point, where people, not everyone will always be satisfied, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe we could connect it to like
Yeah.
VTubing. A lot there's like these VTubers who are like just really good at their work. They stream like every fucking day. They like talk to like thousands of people like every day, every hour. And someone's gonna be like, why aren't you like streaming during the time when I'm here the most?
Oh my god. Like imagine like being like, you have your own shift, right?
Yeah,
They give you specific shifts. You're a student, so you're not allowed to go and do stuff outside of that shift or
Sure.
outside of your region. You're given, like the district, which is usually low crime districts. And even if you try your best and like there was a major event and you just happen to stop it, the first thing they're gonna ask you is why don't you do it to other places? Even though it's very easy to research and know that we aren't allowed to. Could very easily lose our license, very easily lose our education opportunity.
there
breaking
are
the
laws.
rules. There are laws, journalists.
There are
laws.
regulations.
But you know, so you eventually get to learn like how to communicate with these people. Like it's definitely like kill them with kindness, you know,
Yeah.
and be like they ask you a question like that, you basically have to like sort of play it off as like basically you want to help these other places. That's like why you want like well for me that's why I want to be a hero. It's just hard for students like me to just be able to do these sorts of things. Eventually you get more lenient restrictions, and eventually if there's like a major crisis and they need help, sometimes they'll make an exception. You'll be on like the disaster relief or like you'll be on like the on-site recovery people and all that stuff. But it's very situational and it's very controlled. There's a lot of like behind the scenes that goes on, and those are the real heroes because there are definitely a lot of risks to new heroes who just don't know the way around.
Oh, yeah,
it's definitely
definitely.
like
They could,
like
I was
oh, no,
just-
continue.
I was just gonna say that there would usually be like some heroes that do follow every rule and regulation that they need to, but there can just be a lot of times where the rules and regulations would not be beneficial. For example, let's say that there was a fire and you are nearby the
Mhm.
fire, but because technically it's out of your district, you are not allowed to go into it.
That's when you just get
Yeah.
you get a pardon. sorts of
Yeah.
situations. But you can't rush into like a situation like in another district from
Yeah.
hearing about it, right?
Definitely.
Just if you're there, you have a civic duty basically.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, it's just something that you have to like learn over time to what is the best course of action to take during these kinds of things.
exactly. And a lot of the time you're not even outside of that district because like your accommodation is in the district that you're placed in.
Yeah.
So you have when you get the when you once you're done and you've done like you've saved the people, you've done whatever you have to, a lot of the time they will ask you why were you there. If you don't like if you're like and what were you doing there and all this stuff, and you have to ask a bunch of questions. A lot of the time they don't even care. Like they're just like, okay, why were you there? Great, we signed off. But there are times when it just becomes a bit risky. Like, why did you go to this area that is high crime and stuff? It happens a lot with me because that I'm not from my family isn't in the most safe of places. So if I do enforce the civic duty, sometimes I get a little bit more questions than especially from people who are ignorant from where I'm from. So yeah.
Okay,
It
that's
happens.
fair. There is just like some people who are a bit too misinformed for like certain things. Like
Like and not everybody's gonna know who you are, where you're from, what you're doing all the time, you know?
yeah, they just know you're a hero. You're there to save help. I mean, you're there to save lives and help.
Yes, and yeah, they do background checks to make sure that all the information you're saying is true. Um, so, like for example, they'll have somebody pull up your file to see where you're from. If you're saying, "Yeah, I was visiting family," they'll know where that family is and all that stuff, and just to make sure everything's in line, because sometimes there is cases where like pros will go out because their family's in danger. They won't say anything. Like they got told information that if they told anybody else, like, people could be in danger. So they will do their own. Like if you like a lot of like, there's a lot of regulation. So if you say, for example, I'm going to visit my family, but your family's in the other side of the country, something's wrong, and they'll do an investigation without trying to alert you or the person who's probably perpetrating this whole situation, just to make sure there's nothing going on, then you're not being blackmailed into doing things. It's a different kind of situation. So yeah, we've got a lot of public service agents and private agencies do these sorts of like espionage operations and stuff.
Okay, that makes sense considering that heroes really need to be like regulated on what they're doing because somebody who has powers that can let's say that can just level an entire neighborhood, if they're doing something that could be taken as like a threat,
Dangerous. Yeah.
that's something that has to be regulated because if it happens once, it could happen again and again and again and again unless like
Yep,
things change.
exactly. Yep. There's that is a definite risk. There's also times where like when you're in the middle of the fire, like the dredges of everything, and one of your teammates just so happens to be going off book.
Yeah.
And you have the duty to establish whether or not like this is gonna be a too heavy of a risk, and you have to take action. So a lot of the time, when you're in that situation, and let's say like one of your friends is going out and doing something they shouldn't, you have to stop them.
Yeah.
If you truly believe like that is more risk than that's gonna do more harm than good, you have to fix it. Like, it's a tough thing to do because a lot of the time they're doing the detrimental than helpful. Like maybe there's too much risk involved.
I could see where that
Yeah.
would be a major issue, especially what we said earlier, just like powers is like a really it's a really volatile thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a very volatile thing. Um, Entire cities just because somebody has a power that they just couldn't control. That's why when we're born, like we're put in like isolation chambers for the first 3 months just to make sure that, like, doubly sure that there's nothing that we like. There's no danger. It's definitely takes an emotional toll on parents for the first 3 months of having your child, and then just them having to be isolated for a while.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just so that they know that they're not producing any harmful substances or harmful effects on anything. They're very, very, very like particular about those sorts of things.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Seeing as there are many cases of emotionally motivated crimes on Terra, and of course other places, I was wondering, given that powers are involved, would this mean that these kinds of crimes are like more commonplace because there are people with more access to powers, or would it be lessened due to some kind of mutual destruction kind of thing?
That's an interesting question. It's definitely situational. I mean, you have to take into account people's psychology and how things work. To take into account the situation at hand and what prompted a lot of things. I think the best way to think about it is there's not everything happens the same every single time.
Okay.
Every
enough.
situation has to be dealt with in a different way, and it's very similar to psychological cases. A lot of time we have to study a lot of psychology, and
That's good.
one thing that one thing you learn in psychology is that every case is different, and there is no surefire cause for things. So that's the first thing you have to do.
I'm sorry because I'm thinking like you guys have to like learn psychology just so you know how to deal with like certain villains, for example.
We have to learn psychology, we have to learn bioengineering, we have to learn nanotechnology, we have to live in physics, we have to
And then there's like some places like, for example, the America, wherein somebody is feeling like crap. Let's give them pills.
No, well, that's the thing. Like, medication can alleviate some
Oh,
symptoms
definitely,
or
yeah.
help you.
But
It's one of these.
it's not supposed to be the first thing you go to.
Depending on the case though. But for
Oh yeah.
it's like when we're doing we're learning more about behavioral psychology and criminal psychology.
Mhm.
So when it comes to like those sorts of practices, we're not really learning anything in nature of like diagnosing
Like how to
not
cure
really
it
diagnosing.
essentially.
I mean, like,
Just how to deal with it.
yeah, I'd say like not really cure it, but how to alleviate and do these sorts of things. We're just trying to figure, like, we have to be able to assess a situation and how it's going. Really.
Okay.
It's not really our jobs to say what is and what isn't a good method of treatment, but more
Fair
like
enough.
we need to know these sorts of things to understand the minds of these people that we're going to be up against. Also, so that it doesn't affect us mentally when we're dealing with them, because a lot of the time they will use psychological tricks to try and break you mentally.
Oh yeah,
It is
I can see what that will happen.
Yeah.
But thinking about it, it would actually be rather interesting considering how some jobs, for example, going to therapy would be a lot easier when the therapist has great like mind powers, like mind reading powers. That would make things a lot easier.
You're not allowed to do that. There's confidentiality involved.
Fair. Also fair.
It'll work. You could probably ask the psychologist in chat if there are any. Confidentiality is very, very important. So even if you have mind reading powers, there's a very, very strict relation. that reading somebody's mind is basically intrusive.
Yeah, yeah,
You
definitely.
don't want to be intrusive. So that is not something that is it's not something that would ever be done. It's also because people feel like that is also invading their privacy. Their right to say what they believe they should say, and if you're thinking about something that you want to keep private, knowing that you're a psychiatrist or psychologist is reading your mind is very dangerous.
Essentially, like the right to free thinking, right?
Exactly, and free speech and
Oh yeah.
freedom to withhold information. That's the most important part of therapy. Is you have to be comfortable with sharing this information. And if you're not, then that's your personal choice, and that's why they work with you. That's why it's a process rather than just a okay. I know what's wrong now. Let's. I read your mind. It seems like you have premarital issues. Don't want to get married. So here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. We're going to basically go over to your fiance's house and tell them that they are a dirtbag. We don't want to get married. That would not work. That would just one that would piss off the person that's on the other side.
Yeah.
Two, you'd probably be hyper analyzing the situation because you immediately draw conclusions, and also maybe that's what's on their mind at the moment, not what's actually causing their distress.
True. I suppose that's like a thing that really has to be taken into account, especially on depending on what kind of powers you have, and also what kind of career you take if you're not a superhero.
Exactly, yeah. And there are devices that people strap to their necks which inhibit the ability to read each other's minds, because it can get a little crowded and up there, I've heard. Having not just your own thoughts but everybody else's thoughts around you, if your power is that invasive where it just happens constantly without your control, it's like having a million different voices in your head in the close proximity. So yeah, like obviously there's people who can do it with focus, like specific people, and they focus on it, but yeah, like there's yeah, you can, it is a very strong issue.
Speaking
Yeah, I don't know
of,
if I yeah.
Speaking of
No,
like
continue.
losing control, I want to ask you: have you ever had like an incident where you saw someone lose control, or you yourself lost control?
I have examples of both.
Okay.
Well, like here's the thing: a lot of the instances of which people lose control are in controlled environments. Because when we're learning to be a hero, there are cases in which we have to try to push ourselves and push our abilities, probably beyond what we're like comfortable. So I used to only emit a wattage over, I think, 3,400 watts, which
That's a
isn't
lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
Like in terms of what would be manageable and be able to be realistically used. Like that wattage is something that was something we had to work on. So did, and was like that's just how things go. The more you can do, the better you get at it. That's just how it is. And it's also, the wattage wasn't taking into account current, because the current itself is what is dangerous.
Yeah.
My wattage is admittedly not the highest. The current was really high, so we had to manage low current, high wattage.
So you basically have to learn like some kind of electrical engineering then.
Exactly, and well, yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff that went out on there. But there was a case in which one of my friends, while we were doing these strength tests, is what they call, even though some of us are like not strength based abilities. Her ability is to basically control the atmosphere around her. This allows her to basically just move. She can move the winds, she can add humidity, take away humidity, all this sort of stuff, these little aspects to it. They wanted to see how far they can push her ability to control the wind, because if they can, that would mean that she could eventually create stuff like hurricanes and stuff. So they pushed her
Mhm.
and stuff. And it's like, why would you want to make a hurricane? Well, think about the like factors of like various different factors, like fighting somebody who's doing way more destruction than a hurricane would probably do, or relocating people, or relocating things that like imagine people who have high density, right, as their ability. Be able to relocate them because you can control a lot of like the atmosphere. That's basically why we were learning it. We were put in an offshore island in the middle of like nowhere. We just had to push ourselves, and eventually it just led up to her.
I'm just imagining this island must be really fucked up now, considering your power is thermal. That lady's power was weather. If some
It's
kid can like create small explosions, okay, push yourself. It's just a nuclear explosion. It's Bikini Atoll.
With people who have those sorts of powers, they're actually like put into like containment fields doing
Th-
that sort of stuff.
They're like specialized just for them.
Hyper specialized. It's all about safety. Safety first.
Oh my
But
lord.
while she was basically she'd been standing outside for and doing this, basically getting a sunburn for like 6 hours, trying to push herself to control a little bit more. And it just led to her creating a windstorm that lasted like a few days while she was like sick in like the med bay. It was a bit like the rest of us basically had to deal with it while she was going through all that.
I suppose that's extra extra stress on making yourself stronger, I suppose.
Exactly, and it means we're constantly working at it. So a lot of the lightning storms that would come through was my job and another one of my friends. We had to deal with that, and then like windstorms. It was all. There's one of the funniest members in our crew. He was just building giant walls.
Bruh.
With his ability, just having a right old time just to keep like everything inside and insulated. It was a lot. Did a lot. But yeah, those things have happened. And for me, whenever my abilities go out of whack, it's not in the sense of me like going out and burning everything or anything like that. It's more that I start controlling things that I usually can't. A part of like energies that I usually can't. So like the electrical impulses from my muscle to my brain gets hypercharged. And just me being able to react faster, move faster, think faster, see faster, all these like synapses and all these like electrical impulses through my eyes, brain, ears, mouth, nose, body, everything. I feel myself a lot faster, like feel myself a lot more holistically and understanding everything. I can feel my heartbeat, feel my lungs, everything, all the energy being pumped through my body, I can control. That's only in very certain stressful situations where my powers just get pushed. And it just means I can emit more of my energy, but also I can understand my body a lot more, and it allows me to just almost see everything clearer. But yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that makes sense. At least this is something that is at the very minimum like being taken like being taught to you when you're still in hero school, essentially, like being trained for it.
Yeah, we're being trained for any situation. Because imagine you're held captive and tortured, and then something goes wrong and your powers go out of whack. You have to be able to control that and your mentality and stuff, because you could probably do more damage to civilians if you're put in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I'm just like thinking that probably like the amount of people like being tortured just probably like dropped, because like, let's be honest, if
The
they
assumption is like, nah.
yeah.
But you can never be completely sure.
That's true. That's very true. Moving on. According to your file, it says that you also have developed like developing like your own kinds of tech. Is there any kind of tech that you want to tell us about that you've made over the years?
Oh, yeah. So one of the courses that we're taking is bioengineering, electrical engineering, and
Yeah.
particularly one of the newest courses is nanotechnology. I haven't really developed my suit. I have a prototype suit that was made by my mom. Thank her very much. It's amazing. But my suit, I wanted to honor her design, but create it in a way that's with this nanotechnology that I'm trying to develop. Reason why is because the issue with nanotechnology is power, getting a power source.
Sure.
And if I'm constantly emitting at least a little bit of electricity, can power it. I haven't cracked it yet. I was really close before I got here, but yeah, that's one of the things I was developing. Other than that, I've done a bunch of really crazy, wacky stuff during my classes. We learned how to make a torpedo, and we learned how to
Nice.
make a submarine, and we learned how to make it's all about being able to create scenarios where if you need something, you know how it works. Like if you have a mission that dictates you have to go to the bottom of the ocean in a submarine, you need to know how that submarine works.
Because
Or
things
else-
can go wrong.
because you're in a high pressurized tube in the middle of the ocean.
That's
Yeah, things
yeah.
can go wrong.
Things can go definitely wrong.
Yeah. And if you think about like the fact that you're basically in a high pressurized Pringles can under like 7,000 metric tons of water, yeah, you're hmm.
Okay.
It can get rough. It can get rough. But yeah, I mean, it's not like we would like me particularly would go underwater, but you know, it's a situational stuff. Everything happens for right.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
Mhm.
well, we have now the last question of the day, which is
Ooh, last question.
where did the name Phoenix come from? Was it specifically from your ability to manipulate energy, or were there other reasons you got the name Phoenix?
Ooh, the name Phoenix. Nobody knows this, but name Phoenix, my superhero name, the
Yeah.
I one that I want to give myself. It's weird. It's weird. When you choose your name, you're just like, how do you say it in a way that doesn't sound like, I'm giving myself a cool name. But I
Fair.
wanted I wanted to honor my mentor, Blue Beetle, by having a name that is a moniker of the wings she gave me, basically, so that I could soar my own path. But also, I screwed up. I couldn't save the people I should have, and it ended up with me being here, and I messed up.
Okay.
And Phoenix is just want to be able to rise out of the ashes and be the hero I need to be. So I chose the name Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice message to end on, actually. Just
Mhm.
rising from your failures
Yeah,
But-
your failures don't
dictate you, right?
they don't they're not you. They're something you should learn from. They're not something that should ever hold you down.
Hell yeah, that I think that's like a really really good lesson that the viewers of Burning Questions can leave on a good note.
Mhm.
Now, with all that being said, have you ever gone to like a superhero bar and then ask a girl if they're
Sorry.
hot and bothered?
I knew this was going. I knew you were gonna do it. You mad lad. You were gonna ask me that kind of question. I knew it. That's how we were gonna end off in such a nice poetic note. You had to ask me this. Okay,
Of
what's the
course.
question? Continue. What's the question?
No, I was asking if have you ever like asked a girl if they were feeling hot and bothered, and if they just want to be.
oh, like just going up to them is just like, Hey. No. Can make you fly.
Hell yeah.
I haven't done.
Ah, dang
I-
it.
Not my. That's not my person. Yeah, you've had some pretty interesting people who would probably do that sort of thing if they were me. That's not me.
At some point, there should have been like a pyromancer hero who could have like done that, you know? At some point, let's be honest.
Hey, baby, unbothered yet.
Oh yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed like your time on Burning Questions. This is a time when we usually like start asking questions from like the chat. So we have 3 here. We have one from
Ooh.
Savory Chicken, which is your hair fire, Kai?
No. My hair's not fire.
It's just
pink.
it's just pink hair. Is it
Yeah, just
natural
pink
pink or you dye it?
hair. Yeah, it's natural pink, and it's not normal where I'm from. I don't know why I have it. Nobody knows. I've tried dyeing it before because I had to for school. No, it's natural pink, and it's not normal. Just so that people know, it's not normal where I'm from.
I'm just starting to think like, what if like when you were younger, people just thought that was your power? I have pink hair. That's a really shit power.
That was the joke. That was the joke for a long time. But we did tests, and they were just like, "There's nothing there to indicate that that's the mutation that you have." Weird. It's like a birthmark on my head, you know? Just
Yeah.
turning my hair. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Mitchell. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks, Mitchell. I'm doing great. Just I'm taking life one step at a time. I was stressed out for a while doing like a whole bunch of like in classwork and stuff, but I'm doing good now. I'm doing good now.
Oh my bad. There's only like 2 questions. Well, that's fine. Anyway,
It's all good.
to everyone who's watching Burning Questions, I hope you enjoyed watching, and Kai, I hope you enjoyed being on Burning Questions. So,
I
to
did
everyone,
enjoy it.
I will see you all next time. Bye bye now.
Adios.